Well, that didn't take long. Jesse Minter is already working on his staff with the Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here on this bonus edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. And on today's show, Jesse Minter has wasted no time. He's already working on his Baltimore Ravens staff. We'll talk about who he's looking at in the first part of the show. Then in the second part of the show, Adam Schefter revealed some more details on the Jesse Minter hiring for the Ravens and Lamar's involvement in the process. And then finally, we'll talk with Daniel Wade of Locked On Chargers to get his insight from the Chargers' perspective on what the Ravens are getting in Jesse Minter. I want to tell everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Jesse Minter works fast. He was hired as the head coach of the Ravens on Thursday. And on Friday, we were already getting a name on a potential target for his staff. Adam Schefter reported on Friday afternoon, Friday evening-ish, that Joe Cullen, and that name might sound familiar, Joe Cullen is one of the names that Jesse Minter is potentially looking at for his defensive coordinator position. Now, this is interesting, in my opinion, for a couple of different reasons. Cullen obviously has ties to Baltimore. He right now is in Kansas City. He's been in Kansas City for since 2022, but he was in Baltimore for 5 years as the team's defensive line coach. Now, he is now the D-line coach in KC, as I mentioned, but from 2016 until 2021, that's when Joe Cullen was in Baltimore. Jesse Minter was in Baltimore from 2017 to 2021. So those two worked on the Ravens defensive staff together as assistants. Cullen is a two-time Super Bowl champion. He has a plethora of experience as not only just being defensive line coach, which that is what he's been the majority of his career, but he did have a 1-year stint as the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator under Urban Meyer. Now, that season was an absolute disaster, and it only lasted one season for Joe Cullen there. He was not retained following the conclusion of that year, and that's when he latched on with Kansas City, won a couple Super Bowls, and I mean, it's worked well for him in KC. But I think for the Ravens, you know, the offensive coordinator position is the one that a lot of people are talking about right now, and rightfully so. You know, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady, Nate Scheelhaase, Davis Webb. Like, there are a lot of different names that are popping up there. But this was the first official request here, again, reported by Adam Schefter. And for defensive coordinator, obviously Minter is the defensive guy here. So it's going to be a guy. I mean, I'm assuming Minter's going to call these plays, right? Like, that's what it's going to be here, I think. So we're going to have to look at this defensive coordinator position differently here in Baltimore now than we have over the last handful of years, just looking at, okay, who's going to be the play caller for this team is defensively, because that was what John Harbaugh did, right? He delegated out, and Jesse Minter is going to do his fair share of delegating as well here. But again, the D coordinator, either an experienced guy, familiarity, we know that's a backbone of this organization. Would not shock me if Joe Cullen did get this job. Now, there are other options for them. And just for a little bit of background on Cullen first, and I guess Kansas City in particular, obviously they have Chris Jones over there, right? And Chris Jones in Cullen's first year, Chris Jones went crazy. 15 and a half sacks for Chris Jones in 2022 when Cullen got there. So if Joe Cullen wants to come and he wants to bring Chris Jones with him, maybe George Karlaftis, right? All right, we can have that conversation. All right, I'm down with it. But you have other guys as well who have passed by while Joe Cullen has been there. And again, it's more so like the interior guys. But look, I'm sure he's working with that entire unit, pass rush and whatnot in some way, shape, or form. But, Chris Jones is the big name. And, Chris Jones is unbelievable. I mean, he's an absolute game wrecker. He is a game wrecker. And so I would love to see Joe Cullen, because, again, the defensive coordinator responsibilities would be more so he'd be working with the entire unit, but just he's not calling the plays on game day. So Cullen would be an interesting one. You also can look at a couple of other experienced options. There potentially could be a Denard Wilson as the Ravens defensive coordinator if he's willing to not call plays. Maybe it's a guy like Anthony Weaver if he's willing to not call plays. I think that one's probably a little less likely, but for Jeff Hafley over there in Miami, I'm not sure he's going to want Anthony Weaver to stick around, and Weaver might not want to stick around if he's not calling plays. So that's one that people have kind of connected the dots a little bit with. I'd be fine with Weaver as a DC. I'd be totally okay with that. You can also maybe look at a Raheem Morris from Atlanta, head coach no more. Maybe he could be a guy that can come in. There are also a couple of assistants, and we'll actually, in our conversation with Dan Wade, we'll talk about that. But I think that guys like Steve Klinksdale, Mike Elston, those are some guys that potentially could be the coordinators for the Ravens. But this is Jesse Minter's defense. And I'm really excited for the possibility and potential. I do think the Ravens are going to surround Jesse Minter with experience here, but it might not be at every single position, and it might not be at the biggest positions, right? Like with the offensive coordinator position, if it's a Shieldhouse or a Davis Webb or one of those guys, because we have to remember with these head coaching openings that not every single one of these candidates is going to get a head coaching job, right? There are going to be guys that are either going to go back to their situations. There are going to be guys that maybe make a lateral move here. Potentially, some guys maybe will get promotions. Like I could see a guy like a Shieldhouse or a Webb coming in and having that inexperience as an O coordinator, which again, is that better than what Cliff Kingsbury brings you? Is that better than what Joe Brady brings you, et cetera, et cetera? We can have those conversations, but defensive coordinator wise, I think there is more room to have more of an overseer experienced type of guy where you could still bring in a whether it's a younger assistant or an assistant that's been around for a while but hasn't gotten like a D coordinator promotion yet. Cullen obviously would fit in the category, if not for the 1 year in Jacksonville. I could see that being potentially what happens here, but we know that these Jesse Minter defenses that we've seen over the last couple of years, there are a lot of different things he brings to the table where he's going to be able to utilize his players to the best of his ability. He's going to get the most production out of those. I mean, that's been one of the big things, right? Getting more from less, and that to me is really big. You see the player coachability from him and just a lot of different types of things that you feel really confident about with the way that he has done things and the quick turnarounds. I mean, that Michigan defense was terrible before Jesse Minter got there. The Chargers defense was terrible before Jesse Minter got there. So there are all of those things that really intrigue me and I'm really excited about. But getting things started with Joe Cullen, and again, I'm sure we're going to get a lot more of these coming up over the next couple of days and couple of weeks, and we'll have it all covered here on Locked On Ravens. But again, it was like snap of the fingers, boom. Jesse Minter hired. All right, step one. Next step, next day, guys already getting requested reportedly, according to Adam Schefter here. That is really, really cool. And we actually had Willie Snead on the show, former Ravens receiver, yesterday, and he talked about the hiring of Jesse Minter because he and Minter overlapped in Baltimore, and he also went up to LA this past offseason and went to the Chargers minicamp. So he talked about the hire of Minter and kind of what he thinks he'll bring to the table in Baltimore. How you feeling after this hire, and who's Baltimore getting in Jesse Minter?
Yeah, I'm super happy for Jesse, man. He was my guy all the way when I heard the Ravens let go of Harbs, man. Somebody that was just like did it the right way for 18 years, and to see him go was just a sad moment. And I think just when you look for somebody's replacement, right, you want to look for somebody who knows the culture. And I think Jesse was there, especially during my time. He embodied what it meant to be a Raven, and he as a coach, he pushed guys. I always talked to him for a long time because he was working with the DBs as the assistant DBs coach, and he was always asking me questions and just asking how I ran routes and how I knew what coverages and everything like that. And we just built a good rapport. And I even saw him last year, when I went up to LA with the Chargers for their mini camp. I got to chop it up with them for a little bit and it had been years at that point since we had spoken. And, he's just a down to earth type of guy. He's humble. He's a hard worker, and he's great at what he does.
Willie was awesome. He was great to talk to and talk with, and you can check out that full interview. It was on our show yesterday for Friday, so be sure to check out that full interview with Willie. We talked a lot about Jesse Minter, a lot about his experiences in Baltimore, and he gave a little endorsement for an offensive coordinator in Baltimore, which I thought was really cool too. So be sure again to check that out. But that's one of the cool things, right? It's like the connection with the players. And I think that extends to also like this coaching staff he's going to put together. Like I have a lot of confidence in Minter and in the front office to put together that group because, you know, that connection aspect and the connections that Minter does have being, you know, with the heart. Look, the Harbaugh tree knows a lot of people, all right? Whether it's Harbaugh himself, who I think knows the ultimate amount of people, but, you know, Jesse's established those relationships too. And I'm really excited to see what type of staff he puts together and the type of roster this team puts together as well. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk a little bit about what Adam Schefter had to say about some more details regarding the Jesse Minter hiring and Lamar's involvement in this situation. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever. You just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Moving along, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this bonus Saturday edition of the show. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their weekend so far. It was a great end to the week in Baltimore with Jesse Minter being hired as the Ravens head coach. We talked about it. We had an instant reaction edition after the news. We also, again, had Willie Snead on the show, former Ravens receiver, to talk about it. And we'll definitely have a lot more content coming your way about it. We have 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage here. So the regular show is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also have instant reactions after every single piece of big news like we did for the Jesse Minter hiring, as well as after games. We have bonus episodes like this on the weekends when there are headlines to talk about. We got watch-alongs during the season for games, Locked On Ravens squad show as well, twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Myself, Sam Njoku, former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, chopping it up in the Everydayer Club for extra add-on content. Check that out. Link in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website. You can check out the Locked On Ravens page for more details there. Also at 18,000 subscribers in video form, which is incredible. Audio form continues to grow every single day. So thank you so much for all of the support. Let's talk about the details surrounding this Jesse Minter hiring a little bit. Again, I think it's a best of both worlds hiring for this team, where I think Minter has a very high floor and can get this team back to Super Bowl contention next season, as long as the right roster moves are made, you know, with the offensive line and, of course, the pass rush and some of those things. But I also think he has the ceiling to grow with this team and in 5 years say, man, night and day from where he was year 1 to year 5, but also he was really good in year 1. So I'm hoping that is the case. But Adam Schefter did provide some more details in the Pat McAfee show about how this all went down and Lamar's involvement as well. He said, Adam Schefter said, quote, "It became very apparent to the people in Baltimore that's someone they wanted to hire. Baltimore probably went into this thinking Jesse Minter would be one of the ideal candidates." And then Adam Schefter said, quote, "I think there were other people they were really impressed with. The issue is, can you wait on some of these coaches that are in the conference championship games? Nate Shieldhouse, Davis Webb, Chris Shula. If they win, they cannot be hired until February 9th. And I'm going to stop there because this is something that Willie and I talked about yesterday. The fact that I think that this process did speed up to Baltimore, and that's something that a couple of other people said too. Jeff Schlebeck of The Athletic said something similar, and a couple of other people, where it's like Baltimore liked some of the other guys they interviewed. But I think there was a ton of interest in Jesse Minter. The Raiders were a name that kept popping up. We kept hearing that name. It was, all right, Jesse Minter and the Raiders, or Jesse Minter and the Ravens. And that was something that was real. And I think that Baltimore essentially just said, look, if you think that this is the guy, then go hire him, right? Like, If you want to go through your whole process, that's understandable too. Like, I get that. But there is the risk of you going through that and maybe the Seahawks win tomorrow. And all of a sudden, they can't officially be hired. You could talk to Kubiak if you won. Like, you can talk to these guys after the championship weekend. But what if Minter says, hey, I don't want to wait that long, and goes to Las Vegas? And then Kubiak picks Buffalo or something. And Shieldhouse was okay to you, but not great. And Shula was okay. What was okay? And you've lost out on your top two, whatever guys. I think the Ravens just said, look, we feel really confident in this guy. We really like him. And we're going to cut our process short, essentially, is what I feel like based off what these people are saying. That's what I'm assuming happened here. Is the plan probably was to interview some of these guys during championship weekend or after it, I guess. That's what I assume. But I think that they just liked Minter enough, and they really, really liked him. Like, I have no doubt the Ravens are extremely confident in their choice, and there are no regrets. Like, I feel like that's how the Ravens feel. Now, Adam Schefter also said, quote, I think Baltimore saw Jesse Minter, knew him from the 4 years that he spent in the organization. He was incredibly impressive during the interview, a 5-year deal. And he also talked about the Bills head coaching process and search with Josh Allen and said, quote, we know that Josh Allen is actually sitting in the Bills head coaching interviews. Lamar didn't do that, but I have to believe they spoke to Lamar. I don't know if they ever spoke or not, but there's no way they just hired the guy without Lamar having any knowledge of it. So this is interesting because, again, remember the Diana Rossini report that came out on the Herd. She said at the end of the day, he ended up being involved in the Zoom process and whatnot. Like, he's involved in those interviews. Like, that's something that Diana said about like the Cliff Kingsbury offensive coordinator stamp of approval type of thing. That was one of the things she said. It's Lamar's been a part of the interviews, but there was no official, like, is he there or not? Now, Steve Bisciotti said he hopes he would be there. Adam Schefter is implying here that, in my opinion, Lamar Jackson didn't sit in on these meetings. And, if that's the case, again, I don't think it was like he wasn't involved at all. And I agree with Adam Schefter where it's like they wouldn't just, oh, hey, Lamar, here's your new head coach, Jesse Minter. By the way, he and Lamar already have a relationship because Jesse Minter did overlap with Lamar. And multiple people have already said that he and Lamar do already have a good relationship. So I think Lamar's okay with it. I think Lamar, I'd assume at least involved in the virtual process. Obviously, if not the regular, he's in Baltimore type process. But this is something I'm excited about for the pairing of those two being able to continue to grow. The staff, hopefully, again, the offensive coordinator pick is really huge here, but there's a lot of elite things that Jesse Minter brings to the table. Like I said, getting more out of less, the conversion unit rates defensively, red zone and third down defense, elite. He's not a super heavy blitzer, but he's able to dawdle up at the right time, utilizing his players all over the field. There is so much that Jesse Minter does. And coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk with Dana Wade of Locked On Chargers about Jesse Minter. He'll give us all the information about Jesse, so be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season's in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game, the crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Now, the app is incredibly intuitive. Browsing and pairing and buying tickets takes just minutes, and one of my favorite features is being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so there are no surprises. The zone deal stood out to me, too, because you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a packed lotto with multiple profit boosts. You can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. Boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're back in momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like. Instead of forcing you to bet something new, every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks and apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Ostreicher still here with you. Saturday bonus edition of the show. Thanks again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. 5 days a week plus more of that daily Ravens coverage, as we always have here on Locked On Ravens. And if you have a friend or a family member who's a Ravens fan, wants some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them our way here on Locked On Ravens, as we have them covered just like we have you covered. You can also follow me on social media at KStriker34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. Also trying the Facebook thing out, so be sure to follow me over there at Kevin Ostreicher. Dan Wade of Locked On Chargers will join us to talk about everything Jesse Minter now. We'll talk about who he is as a play caller, who he is as a leader, what he brings to the table for this Ravens team, and a lot more. Dan, I'm excited personally about Jesse Minter coming back. Of course, he was with the Ravens from 2017 to 2021, then went off and did great things, both at the collegiate level and obviously with the Chargers. Quick turnaround for that Chargers defense once Minter came into the building. How was the Jesse Minter experience in Los Angeles? Was it something that Chargers fans were accepting was probably going to come to an end with the way that this defense had performed? And how big of a loss is it for the Chargers, and how big of a gain is it for the Ravens?
Jesse Minter's a terrible coach. No, I'm just playing. I guess we can stop that now. We can stop. No, it's a huge loss. And I mean, it was no surprise to anyone that he became a head coach in this cycle. And I think Chargers fans were just kind of crossing their fingers, hoping, hey, maybe you can get one more year. And I feel like the general sentiment in Chargers land is they missed a window, right? Like they kind of wasted the 2 years they had with Jesse Minter messing around with Greg Roman, as Ravens fans kind of know all about, right? So yeah. I think that's the general sentiment. I think there's always, the online portion of things where you see how much the other team is upset that they lose them is usually a pretty good sign that you're getting somebody good. And I think just having watched every Jesse Minter press conference, having watched every game, multiple times that he's coordinated for this team, he grew as a coordinator during his time with the Chargers. And he already started off really high as far as, what he brought to the table for this team. So you see the composure and how he's kind of dealt with the difficulties and obstacles he's faced in the bad games specifically that the Chargers have had, and how they found a way to kind of rebound from those. And it was just pretty clear that the writing was on the wall. Hey, this dude is going to be a head coach at some point. It's a when, not an if. And I mean, the Chargers brass told us as much. So Jesse Minter, an excellent coach. It made too much sense for the Ravens to take him. I mean, I think really the only shot Chargers fans had was if the Ravens want to go totally out of the Harbaugh tree, right? If they just want to go completely out of that and start anew with something else, maybe you have a chance. But to me, it just always made too much sense. And I think the Ravens got a great coach.
What is Jesse Minter's defense? Who is he as a play caller? What does he like to do? What are his personnel packages? What are the things he like? How aggressive is he? What is the Jesse Minter defense in your eyes? And what is Baltimore getting in terms of what they can do with what Jesse Minter is going to bring to the table?
Yeah, I think it's varied, right? And he does a good job, week in and week out. I think his specialty is trying to take away what the other team wants to do the most. And I know that sounds kind of general and cliche, but you really saw in the Pittsburgh Steelers game this year where they just totally neutralized Aaron Rodgers. They knew exactly what he wanted to do. They knew he liked to step up in the pocket a lot. And so what they did is they continually stunted their edges inside. So every time you went to go step up in the pocket, there was nowhere to go. And they didn't give him those easy passes that he had kind of led the league in up until that point. And that's just kind of one of the demonstrations you've seen from him where you're seeing, hey, they're taking away what they do well. I mean, even the Patriots, right? Patriots high-flying offense all year. Even in a game that was completely embarrassing for the Chargers offense, they did a really good job against that defense. But I'd say what he kind of, where I think he fits best with the Ravens is he treats the nickel star position kind of as a weapon. He wants his best player playing there defensively, which obviously is such a easy transition for him now because you go from Derwin James to having someone like a Kyle Hamilton, but he wants to feature Kyle Hamilton in that defense, right? Which is, I think, why he was great. And I think people forget kind of the chatter around Derwin James before Jesse Minter came through, because it was, hey, like this contract is aging terribly. He doesn't seem like he's the same player. And now you get this new wonderkind. We had a wonderkind. It was Brandon Staley, right? And we saw how those 3 years played out, and then a culmination of a 63-21 blowout to the Raiders. So he got Derwin James back on track. I mean, 2 seasons. He had 1 All-Pro nod as a rookie in 2018. Jesse Minter comes and he immediately puts back-to-back second-team All-Pro, seasons together as a slot corner is how they ended up classifying it. But he knows how to, I mean, the biggest thing is, and you're going to hear this from everyone across the board, he elevates players and he integrates players seamlessly into this defense. And the communication they worked with is just impeccable. And you see it so often that when there is a busted coverage and a big play is allowed, you're so surprised because they're usually so buttoned up on the back end. So as far as the coverages and things like that, he does vary, a lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 4, a lot of zone is what you're going to be running. But he tries to mix it up with sim pressures, stunts, things like that. But it seems pretty, tailored to whoever the opponent is that week.
I've seen some of the clips of the big guys dropping back into coverage too, which
couple big guy interceptions.
He got intercepted, and that's my favorite play in the league. So I'm looking forward to some of that in Baltimore. But the thing that you mentioned, elevating talent, and I love that because that's also something that I've heard and that continues to be put out about Jesse. And Daniel, I know that the defensive spending in Los Angeles is not particularly high. And,
No.
One of the things that Minter brings to the table is it feels like he gets the most out of guys. And that elevation that you mentioned, like Thule has been incredible in Los Angeles. Adafe Owe gets traded to LA after having no sacks, and Jesse Minter gets 7.5 out of him and has him looking like, hey, what type of contract is he going to get? I mean, what was it like to kind of watch the evolution of some of these players, not just Derwin James, obviously, like you talked about, but some of these other guys like an Owe, Thule, and you hear so many of these Chargers players saying farewell to Jesse, being like, thank you for everything. Thank you for believing in me. It feels like that belief has a huge part to do with some of ththese increased productions from guys that we didn't really know if they were going to be good or not. Jesse Minter got the best out of them, it feels like.
Oh, 100%. And I think that it's part like using guys the way, that they're best used. And every coach says that, right? Like, I want to put guys in position to succeed. I want to kind of craft my defense around the players as opposed to trying to fit my players into a defense that I want to run. And everyone says it, but with Jesse Minter, you believe it, because as much as like they got so much more out of other guys, like truly, I think one of the biggest talents that he has, and it's credit to Joe Ortiz as well, former Ravens front office guy for a long time, identifying underused assets, right? And finding guys that were coming off of bad years where you see these deals and you're like, how am I supposed to be excited about that? But it got to the point in his second season where you just have this implicit trust in Jesse Minter that if Jesse Minter thinks Dante Jackson's going to work after having, some of the worst grades in the league the year before, you trust that it's going to happen. And what does he do? Go out there and have a career season, right? Like Tony Jefferson, some guy off the streets, right? Spent a year with the Ravens on the front office side of things, comes back into football, and he had 4 interceptions this year, had 4 interceptions his entire career leading up to this. But also like when injuries happen, right? Because that's such a big part of the game. The attrition of the game is so huge. You kept waiting for things to drop off and they just never really did. Like they picked up a Marcus Williams, who you're familiar with, off the streets. He goes in and kind of plays seamlessly. Man, they were getting like high level play out of Eli Apple in 2024 at some point. Marcus May comes to town. First week, he's playing significant snaps and gets an interception last year against the Falcons. Like, it is so impressive to see like what he was able to do, taking these kind of discarded guys and guys who had been written off and guys coming off of career worst seasons. I don't know if Benjamin St-Juste had a good season before he came to Los Angeles this year, and he was playing at like a truly high level cornerback, and a lot of that is how he used him, right, in the matchups that they decided to use him in. But a lot of that is just, Jesse Minter being able to identify the talent and the close relationship that he had with Joe Ortiz to be able to kind of single these guys out and say, hey, this will work here. The stats aren't going to tell you this player's good. I can make this guy into a big player, whether it's Dante Jackson or Christian Fulton or Elijah Molden, who you traded a 7th round pick for, or Tony Jefferson, whoever it is. That person is going to come to the Chargers and flourish in Jesse Minter's defense. So that is one thing I could not kind of proved more. Like, there's just no way I could agree more to that statement than this guy the sum was always better than the parts. Like the defense was better than the talent and the money they spent there. And I think that a lot of it was from Jesse Minter.
There have been so many good things that have been put out about Jesse. And I mean, I've tried to go out of my way to see, okay, is there any weakness with this guy? And I haven't been able to find anything personally. So I want to ask you, is there something with Jesse that didn't really work, or there was a weakness in his play calling? Was there anything like that Ravens fans should be aware of coming in? Because I think, look, nobody's perfect, right? There's going to be stuff, but is there anything with Jesse that Ravens fans should be aware of in that regard?
Yeah, like I think the big concern for Jesse going into this year was, the first year he was in 2024, he was the coordinator, and they were the number one scoring defense in the league, right? But a lot of that was because they just played so many bad quarterbacks, and they had a cupcake schedule, and you can only play who you play. But then you'd play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and get the score run up on you. You run into the Ravens that year, and they're kind of able to do whatever they want against you. Same thing with the Bengals. And even early this year against the Commanders, right? It happened against the Colts. It happened against the Jaguars. They got throttled. The run defense was a big part of those games, right? And a lot of that, though, was players trying to overcompensate some, right? Because when you run the light boxes that Jesse Minter likes to run, and he's going to consistently do that, everyone kind of has to be perfect in what they need to do there. And if one guy doesn't fit that run fit, everything else is tailored around that. So one guy gets out of position, it kind of exposes the other 10 guys defensively, and that caught up to them a couple times. And I think another thing is them trying to match coverages. A lot of times, a couple things you saw other offensive coordinators do was just leverage the numbers against them. You go back to that Commanders game, you go back to that Jaguars game, and you see these big runs that are broken off where you'll send 3-4 even receivers on one side of the field and really kind of challenge those concepts that Jesse Minter likes to do, getting 2-on-1s in the passing game. And then all of a sudden you have one, box safety over here and a couple of guys that ready to go out there and seal off the block. And now the other team has the numbers advantage, and they're playing the numbers against them in the light boxes that he likes to run against them. So a lot of that, as the players told us, as Jesse Minter told us, is, hey, sometimes guys try to do a little bit too much. And when you do that in this defense that is so kind of tailored to what they need to do, it can expose you. So I'd say run defense wasn't totally personnel-wise. Some of it was personnel issues for the Chargers as far as the bad run defense that they put out there this year. But I would say there were certain coordinators. I mean, Liam Cohen got him twice, right? Got him for 40 points when he was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator. Got him for 35 this year as the Jaguars head coach. So there's certain guys that had his number, and that is a lot of what they kind of used to, use his own scheme against him.
Wow. Not great news for Ravens fans of who the Ravens play this upcoming season. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in their schedule.
I think he's going to learn.
Yeah, we'll look out for that one. But I do want to get into a little, because, we've talked a lot about scheme and play calling, but who is he as a leader? Coming into a head coach role, obviously it's different than being a coordinator, right? You have to be a leader of men, and there are a lot of different ways to do that. But for you, what is Jesse like as a leader, connecting with players? That's been a big thing. A lot of players, former, current, who have played under Jesse Minter, have raved about, particularly a lot of the Chargers players from this past season, sending them I can't even count how many farewell messages there have been to Jesse out of social media from the Chargers. So is he more of like a hype type of guy? Is he more reserved? How do you think he's going to lead being the head coach of the Ravens?
Yeah, I'd say composure is a big part of it, right? Like, he is a super even-keeled guy. Like, the tenor you'd seen from him after, a 40 points allowed by his team was pretty much the same as if, they allowed 3 points. And I thought that was something he was pretty ahead of his time with, right? And I think maybe all the experiences under Jim and John Harbaugh, going to college, being back in the pros, prepared him for that, right? And he seems very even-keeled. But that being said, when the big plays happen, he will be there. Like, he is the first guy guys are running to. And you can tell there's like the mutual respect, because it's like they're running up to that guy, because it's like, Coach, you told me that was going to happen. I did what you told me to do, and it paid huge dividends. And I think that's how you get that true buy-in from your players is, you teach them, and then they start to see the success, and then they start to buy in even more. And I think those guys wanted to do it right because of Jesse Minter, because they believed in the system so much. And so as much as he was reserved, he was on the sidelines the whole time. He's not somewhere up in a box trying to call the defense. He was right there. And a lot of times you see, a big man get a pick off of sim pressure. You see somebody, do something where they saw it on film. They knew what was coming. And the first guy they run to is Jesse Minter to go celebrate with him. And you'll see all the pictures of, guys jumping into his arms and, hugging and celebrating with him on the sideline. So I think he is very, very reserved and kind of even keeled. but also knows kind of when he has to turn on the other side of things. I mean, man, Kevin, like, we're talking about a team that came from Brandon Staley, where like you had players complaining like that it was super cliquey, right? And like not everyone had that very good relationship with Brandon Staley. Only some of them did. And Deion Henley's not getting a happy birthday when the guy's in front of the team listing off all the birthdays and somebody gets left out. Like it's little things like that you're like, okay, well, it's not that important. Like it didn't feel cliquey with this team. Like this team, they all bonded defensively as a unit, and all those guys credited Jesse Minter for that, which is why you see all the praise that he's getting on social media. So I think as far as that goes, very even-keeled guy, but can let the emotions out a little bit, when the players kind of bring it to him.
Daniel's great. Be sure to check him out over at Locked On Chargers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. On the way out, be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up, maybe a bonus episode tomorrow if there is more headlines to talk about with Jesse Minter. But if not, we'll be back here on Monday with our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.